The Emperor called her Barren. The Lumerian doctors declared her genetically incompatible. But when Earth diplomat Reed Valencia arrived, Niara's perceived flaw became her greatest strength. What started as a political arrangement revealed a truth buried for millennia, a truth that could either save their worlds or destroy them. Lumaria's survival depends on a single royal bloodline. The planetary consciousness network requires a biological heir to maintain the connection. This isn't just tradition, it's fundamental infrastructure. The entire civilization operates through this psychic network, like a living internet running through royal DNA. Every citizen connects to it. Every ship navigates by it. Without the royal heir, their society frays at the edges first, then collapses completely. Niara carries the flaw that could break that chain. Her genetic code shows an incompatibility syndrome. The royal physicians confirmed it during her 16th year examination. They used scanners that mapped her molecular structure. The results showed a discontinuity in the telepathic receptors. Her body cannot anchor the network. She cannot produce an heir who could maintain it either. Emperor Thaxon received the report without changing expression. He calculated the damage. His daughter became a liability in that moment. Her value shifted from heir to bargaining chip. Royal children in these systems become assets or weapons. History shows countless alliances sealed through marriage. Children traded like territory. Thaxon saw Niara's worth only in what she could extract from another empire. The weight of 15 generations presses down on this diagnosis. Previous rulers built this system over millennia. Each heir represented another link in the chain. Niara represents the broken link. The Emperor sees the political angles immediately. A barren daughter can still serve the throne through alliance. Her personhood matters less than her utility. Her feelings, her dreams, these become irrelevant data points. He keeps her close but distant. She attends court functions. She learns diplomacy and history, but the Emperor's eyes measure her worth constantly. He watches how other delegates look at her. He calculates which empire might value a Lumerian princess most. The flaw makes her worthless as an heir but potentially valuable as a pawn. The court physicians continue monitoring her. They run tests hoping for an error. The results never change. Her genetic markers remain incompatible. The science appears absolute. Their entire medical understanding confirms she cannot continue the bloodline. The network's stability has a 20-year window without an heir. The countdown begins the day the doctors make their final report. Thaxon starts considering diplomatic options. He reviews files on potential alliance targets. He needs a partner strong enough to justify giving away royal blood, but desperate enough to accept damaged goods. He studies Earth's recent expansion. Their technology grows rapidly, but lacks Lumeria's psychic network capabilities. They might see value where Lumerians see only failure. Niara feels the shift in how people treat her. The physicians' pitying looks. The courtiers' whispered calculations. She knows her father sees her as a problem to solve. She walks through palace corridors feeling the weight of silent judgment. Her own body has become a political crisis. Her personal desires have become irrelevant to the state's needs. The Emperor makes his decision. Earth's delegation will arrive within the month. He will offer them the princess as a companion. The proposal will frame it as an honor. He knows they will recognize the strategic value of royal blood ties. He also knows they won't suspect the genetic flaw until after the agreement seals. Thaxon watches the star charts. Earth's ship approaches Lumerian space.
He practices the speech he will give the human diplomat.
He will smile and offer his greatest disappointment as if it were his proudest gift. The arrival changes everything. Reed Valencia arrived with Earth's formal credentials and a cautious optimism. He wore the standard diplomatic attire, dark fabric with subtle Earth insignia. His team included 2 aides and a security detail. They entered the throne room under Lumerian guard escort. The Emperor received them from his crystalline throne. Thaxon offered the traditional greeting ritual. The formal words masked his calculations. He studied the human diplomat's posture. He noted the calm assessment in Reed's eyes. The Emperor understood this type of man, pragmatic, careful, trained to read situations. Thaxon decided to offer the surprise gift early in negotiations. He gestured toward a side entrance. Niara entered wearing ceremonial robes. She moved with practiced grace but kept her eyes lowered. The Emperor announced her as a companion for the Earth delegation. He framed it as an honor, a royal presence to strengthen ties. His voice held just the right blend of generosity and authority. Reed accepted with formal thanks. His diplomatic training hid any surprise. He understood the transaction immediately. Royal marriages have sealed alliances throughout history. Princesses became living treaties. Their bodies served as territorial markers. Their children became blood guarantees of peace. Thaxon's strategy was coldly precise. He gave away his flawed daughter while gaining Earth's technology sharing. He calculated that Reed would value the political symbolism over biological details. The Emperor saw humans as sentimental creatures. They would treasure royal blood without understanding its broken nature. Niara stood perfectly still during the exchange. She felt the humiliation like a physical weight. Her father traded her like currency. Her own desires meant nothing. Her education, her skills, all reduced to a bargaining chip. She became property transferred between empires. Reed's team documented the offer through discreet recorders. They captured the Emperor's wording. They noted Niara's composed stillness. The diplomatic records would show this as a generous gesture. The underlying reality was purely strategic. Empires have always used personal relationships as political tools. Royal children become living contracts. Thaxon maintained his smiling mask. He knew the genetic flaw would surface later. By then, the alliance would be formalized. Earth would be committed. The Emperor secured Lumaria's technological gain while disposing of a liability. He weaponized his daughter's existence against a foreign power. The ceremony concluded with exchanged documents. Reed's signature joined Thaxon's on the alliance terms. The princess became officially assigned to the Earth delegation. She would travel with them. She would live among them. Her father ceased to look at her once the papers signed. Niara collected her limited personal items under guard supervision. She selected only what fit in one carrying case. The guards watched her without expression. They followed protocol but showed no respect. She felt their silent judgment. The Barren princess became someone else's problem now. Reed waited at the ship's ramp. He watched her approach with her single case. He saw the stiffness in her shoulders. He noted the careful control in her movements. He recognized the signs of someone who expected disappointment. He gave a slight nod rather than a smile. They stood facing each other in the ship's entrance corridor. The air hummed with engine preparation sounds. Reed introduced himself formally but kept distance. Niara gave her name and title in return. The silence stretched between them. Both understood this meeting was arranged. Neither knew what came next. The warmth became a constant hum in her abdomen. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat, a low-frequency glow that defied medical understanding. Lumarian genetic incompatibility syndrome rendered reproductive systems permanently inactive. The diagnosis was absolute, yet her body disobeyed known science. She stood before the mirror in her quarters. Her skin showed no visible change initially. The glow remained internal, a biological contradiction. Fiction often portrays impossible pregnancies as miraculous events. This felt less like a miracle and more like a fundamental rewriting of reality. Her body was becoming something the textbooks denied could exist. The sensation intensified over 3 days. It sharpened from warmth to distinct internal pressure. She experienced brief waves of nausea followed by surges of energy. Her body was undergoing rapid cellular changes without medical explanation. This wasn't supposed to happen. The royal physicians had been certain. Accelerated gestation concepts appear in speculative biology. Organisms that evolve under extreme conditions sometimes develop compressed life cycles. But this was different. This was a hybrid embryo forming against all biological constraints. Two incompatible genetic lineages were merging where science said they couldn't bond. She noticed the first physical sign during morning meditation, a faint luminescence beneath her skin around the abdominal region. It glowed with soft golden light for precisely 7 seconds before fading. The phenomenon repeated hourly. Each occurrence lasted longer than the previous one. Medical scans would show the impossible truth. A hybrid embryo was developing at alarming speed. The child's unique genetic structure was accessing ancestral codes from both lineages. It was rewriting its own biology as it grew. This wasn't just pregnancy. It was biological revolution happening inside her. The energy signatures began affecting nearby electronics. Lights flickered when the glow intensified. Communication devices hissed with static during the peak cycles. The child generated power that standard instruments couldn't measure properly. This energy represented both wonder and danger. She felt the first conscious movement on the fourth day. Not the flutter of early gestation, but a deliberate pressure against her abdominal wall. The embryo was developing sentience far earlier than any documented species. Its cognitive development matched its physical acceleration. The reality settled on her slowly. This child represented a bridge between worlds. Its very existence challenged fundamental assumptions about both species. Where science saw impossibility, life found a way. The embryo was not an anomaly, but a correction. She kept the changes hidden from the crew. The medical staff would scan her if they suspected anything. Their instruments would detect the hybrid biology immediately. The readings would contradict everything known about Lumerian reproduction. Earth's surveillance systems were already monitoring biological data. The ship's medical sensors tracked crew vitals automatically. These systems flagged anomalies for review. The pregnancy's energy signatures would eventually trigger alerts. The automated monitoring had no capacity for wonder. It only recognized deviation from established norms. The system would classify the hybrid embryo as contamination. It would report the findings through secure channels without emotional context. She felt the next energy surge building. The glow beneath her skin brightened noticeably. Devices in her quarters emitted low humming sounds. The systems were detecting something they couldn't process. The surveillance net was tightening around her secret. Earth surveillance systems detected the anomaly within hours. Automated medical scanners aboard the diplomatic vessel transmitted biological data directly to Lumerian intelligence. The readings showed impossible cellular activity. The system flagged it as a contamination event. Priority alerts reached the Emperor's private terminal without human filtration. Thaxon studied the data with cold precision. His fury remained contained but absolute. He saw the hybrid pregnancy as both biological heresy and political threat. The royal bloodline faced contamination from inferior genetics. His own daughter became a vessel for impurity. The surveillance state provided perfect information for his judgment. He issued the termination order without consulting advisors. The command went directly to Void Hunter Command. His words carried the weight of imperial authority. He labeled the developing child an abomination. He designated the human diplomat as contamination. The princess required purification. The objectives were clear and absolute. The Void Hunters received their orders through neural implants. These biomechanical warriors moved with programmed efficiency. Their emotions remained suppressed by design. They existed only to execute imperial will. Their bodies adapted for silent killing in any environment. They represented the Emperor's perfect instruments of enforcement. Historical parallels exist across empires. Rulers have always eliminated perceived threats to purity. Orders for extermination follow similar patterns across civilizations. The language varies, but the purpose remains consistent. Eliminate the different. Eradicate the impure. Maintain control through absolute violence. The Emperor's chief geneticist suggested further study. He proposed examining the unique biological fusion. Thaxon dismissed the suggestion immediately. Scientific curiosity held no value against ideological purity. The regime prioritized control over understanding. Dissent of any kind represented weakness. The termination squad deployed within minutes of the order. 6 Void Hunters moved toward the Earth vessel's coordinates. Their approach vectors avoided standard patrol routes. They used stealth technology to mask their signatures. Their systems interfaced with Lumerian tracking networks. They located the princess through her implanted monitoring devices. The objective parameters allowed no margin for error. Terminate the hybrid embryo. Eliminate the human contamination. Purify the princess through advanced medical procedures. The orders included authorization for full lethal force. Collateral damage was acceptable if necessary. Reed's security systems detected the approaching threat too late. The Void Hunters already breached the outer defensive perimeter. Their technology surpassed Earth's diplomatic shielding. They moved through security fields like shadows through water. The confrontation became inevitable within minutes. Niara felt the shift in the ship's energy patterns. The internal glow in her abdomen intensified in response. The child recognized the approaching danger. Its sentience reacted to the threat before external sensors registered it. The biological connection between mother and child created an early warning system. She accessed the security feeds through a maintenance terminal. The Void Hunters appeared as distorted blips on the scanners. Their movement patterns showed professional kill team precision. She recognized their configuration from Imperial defense briefings. These were her father's personal extermination squad. The reality settled upon her without drama. Her father chose purity over his own daughter. He sent killers to murder her child and its father. The lifetime of training and obedience warred with new instincts. The protective urge overwhelmed years of conditioned compliance. She made her choice standing before the flickering screen. The princess decided to become something else entirely. Niara watched the Void Hunter signals approach on the scanner. Her father sent his personal extermination team. The orders would be absolute: terminate the hybrid, eliminate the human, purify the royal bloodline. Her entire life trained her to obey such commands without question. Royal duty demanded compliance. Tradition required submission to imperial will. The maternal instinct overrode decades of conditioning. A primal urge to protect the life inside her shattered the obedience drilled into her since childhood. She placed a hand over her abdomen. The child responded with a soft pulse of energy. This connection felt more real than any loyalty to the throne. Psychology shows how crisis can break lifelong indoctrination. The threat to her child created cognitive liberation. She saw her father's doctrine as oppression rather than law. The values she'd accepted as absolute now revealed themselves as control mechanisms. Her perspective shifted from subject to protector. She found Reed checking weapon systems in the armory. He moved with efficient precision, loading energy cartridges into sidearms. His diplomatic calm had given way to operational readiness. He looked up as she entered. His eyes held no judgment, only assessment. He asked what she wanted to do. The question struck her as revolutionary. No one had ever asked her preferences before. Her entire life consisted of executing others' decisions. This simple inquiry acknowledged her agency for the first time. Shared crisis forges bonds faster than diplomacy. They stood facing the same threat from different angles. Reed focused on tactical solutions. Niara confronted emotional and ideological transformation. Their alliance solidified through mutual respect for each other's competence under pressure. She made her choice without ceremony. We protect the child. The words felt foreign yet absolutely right. This was her first independent decision as an adult. She chose defiance over obedience, protection over tradition, life over doctrine. Reed nodded once. He handed her a compact pulse pistol. His trust was practical rather than emotional. He recognized her shift from pawn to partner. Their objectives aligned completely now. Survive the hunters, protect the child, challenge the empire. The transformation completed itself in that armory. The princess became a protagonist. The diplomat became a defender. Their relationship evolved from arranged companionship to chosen partnership. The Void Hunters were minutes away. The confrontation would test their newfound alliance immediately. Niara felt the child's energy synchronize with her heartbeat. The biological connection reinforced her resolve. This was no longer about politics or inheritance. It was about protecting something the universe declared impossible, but her body knew was real. They moved toward the ship's command center together. Reed accessed navigation charts while she monitored the hunters' approach. Their movements coordinated without discussion. Crisis distilled their priorities to essential actions. Every decision focused on survival and protection. The search for answers began with evasion first. They needed time to understand what was happening inside her. The biological miracle demanded scientific explanation before confrontation. The Void Hunters provided the immediate threat, but the larger mystery required solutions beyond weaponry. Reed plotted a course toward neutral territory. He targeted a sector with minimal Imperial presence. Their escape needed to buy research time alongside survival time. The child's accelerated development meant answers were needed within days, not months. Niara felt the shift in her own thinking. She started analyzing patterns instead of following protocols. Her royal education contained vast historical data. She began connecting ancient texts with current biological anomalies. The answers might lie in forgotten knowledge rather than modern science. The ship's engines hummed to life under Reed's command. The Void Hunters entered weapons range. Their first energy bolts impacted the shields. The battle began as the search for truth commenced. Science offered no explanation for the pregnancy. Medical scans showed genetic combinations that should not exist. The embryo defied all known biological rules. Their search for answers led to ancient texts instead of modern databases. Legends spoke of crystalline artifacts holding cellular memory. These stories mentioned the Genesis shard specifically. Reed remembered his visit to Aradia during the initial diplomatic survey. Researchers there activated a recovered shard. The crystal emitted light before going dormant again. He stood near the activation chamber during the event. The energy signature felt like static electricity across his skin. Nobody understood what the pulse meant at the time. Lumerian folklore contains accounts of crystals awakening latent abilities. These stories describe artifacts reactivating dormant genetic codes. The legends align with concepts of genetic memory found across galactic cultures. Many civilizations share myths about objects containing ancestral knowledge. These narratives often hold fragments of historical truth beneath metaphorical layers. The Genesis shard represented more than archaeological curiosity. Its cellular memory contained codes from before the species' divergence. The artifact held genetic information from when humans and Lumerians shared common ancestry. This explained why modern science couldn't comprehend the hybridization. The pregnancy wasn't breaking rules, it was following older ones. Reed's proximity during the shard activation proved significant. The energy pulse altered his cellular structure at fundamental levels. This change remained dormant until physical contact with Niara. Their formal handshake upon her arrival completed the activation sequence. The shard's influence worked through both their biologics simultaneously. The embryo's rapid development matched ancient descriptions of catalytic fusion. Historical texts mention accelerated gestation under specific energetic conditions. The child's unique genetic structure actively reshaped its own biology. This wasn't mutation but reactivation of pre-existing potential. The shard didn't create something new. It unlocked something ancient. Genetic memory concepts appear throughout fictional works. Stories describe characters accessing ancestral knowledge through various means. The Genesis shard functioned as a biological key rather than a mystical object. It triggered dormant sequences that modern science had categorized as evolutionary dead ends. The pregnancy represented biological rediscovery. Lumerian doctrine suppressed these ancient truths deliberately. The Empire maintained power through controlled narratives about genetic purity. The shard's existence challenged official history. Its capabilities suggested intentional separation rather than natural divergence. The artifact hinted at manipulated evolution across millennia. The resolution became clear through combined analysis. Niara's genetic flaw was never a defect. It was a dormant potential waiting for catalytic activation. The shard provided the key through Reed's altered biology. Their connection unlocked what imperial science had declared impossible. The pregnancy was natural development, not biological anomaly. This understanding changed their immediate priorities. They needed expertise beyond standard medical knowledge. The answers required someone who understood both ancient texts and forbidden science. Their search led to a name mentioned in suppressed research papers. An exiled geneticist living beyond imperial reach might hold the missing pieces. Lyria Vox's theories contradicted official doctrine for decades. She published papers about shared ancestry before her exile. Her work mentioned the Genesis shard's potential capabilities. Finding her became their next objective. The Void Hunters continued their pursuit as this new direction took shape. Reed led her to a small meeting room aboard the Earth vessel. The door slid shut behind them. He gestured toward a simple chair. Niara sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap. She expected interrogation. Royal protocol dictated formal exchanges of information. She prepared to answer questions about Lumerian defenses, trade routes, political structures. Reed sat across from her. He didn't open a datapad. He didn't record the conversation. He asked about her journey from the palace. His voice held no judgment, only calm curiosity. This confused her. Diplomatic exchanges followed patterns. This felt like drifting without coordinates. She answered with careful, measured responses. Each word chosen for political safety. Reed listened without interrupting. He nodded at appropriate moments. His attention felt different from courtiers. They watched for weaknesses to exploit. He seemed to actually hear what she said. Cross-cultural communication often fails at basic levels. Different species interpret silence differently. Gestures carry unintended meanings. Tone conveys hidden messages. Reed understood these barriers. He kept his hands visible and still. He maintained consistent eye contact without staring. He avoided idioms that wouldn't translate. Niara noticed his questions never touched military matters. He asked about Lumerian art. He inquired about educational methods. He wondered about seasonal festivals. These topics felt like traps at first. She gave surface answers while watching for hidden agendas. Reed recognized her guardedness. High-stakes diplomacy requires building trust through small steps. He shared a minor observation about Earth's weather patterns. He offered a neutral fact without demanding reciprocity. Trust builds through gradual reciprocity, not sudden revelations. She relaxed slightly. Her shoulders lost their rigid set. No one had ever asked about her opinions on art. Her father only cared about political analysis. Her tutors focused on strategic knowledge. This human valued her perspective on color theory and traditional tapestries. Reed mentioned his younger brother liked painting. He described the boy's concentration when mixing colors. The personal detail surprised her. Lumerians never shared family information casually. Such things became weapons in court politics. This felt like offering a vulnerability. She risked a question about Earth's educational methods. Reed described learning through experimentation rather than memorization. He explained how students solve practical problems. The concept fascinated her. Lumerian education emphasized perfect recall of established knowledge. The conversation shifted from interrogation to exchange. They discussed comparative history for 20 minutes. Reed never pressed for classified information. He seemed genuinely interested in cultural differences. Niara found herself explaining ceremonial rituals without filtering for security. She realized this was the first real conversation of her life. Court discussions served political purposes. Tutoring sessions aimed at skill development. This was simply two people talking. The novelty felt both dangerous and exhilarating. Reed finally stood when the ship's chronometer chimed. He showed her to her quarters without touching her. He pointed out the environmental controls. He explained how to summon help if needed. His courtesy felt automatic, not calculated. The door closed behind him. Niara stood in the center of the room. The hum of the ship's systems filled the silence. She replayed the conversation in her mind. Every interaction with her father carried layers of manipulation. This human's directness felt like clean air after a lifetime of smoke. The mess hall served simple food on plain trays. No ceremonial plating. No servants waiting to clear dishes. Reed handed her a tray and pointed to the dispensers. She watched humans eat while standing. They talked over meals without formal addresses. This was fuel consumption, not a state function. They played board games in the common area. Reed taught her chess first. The pieces felt solid in her hand. The rules had clear boundaries. She learned to think 3 moves ahead. Humans used games to test strategies without consequences. Lumerians considered games childish unless they involved political maneuvering. Cultural exchange happens in these small moments. The way humans passed salt without ceremony, how they laughed at missed moves in games, the casual sharing of food from one plate to another. These actions built familiarity faster than diplomatic protocols. Mundane activities create bonds that formal negotiations cannot match. Reed mentioned his brother during a chess game. He moved his knight and spoke without looking up. His younger brother saw patterns differently. The boy noticed details others missed. He sometimes struggled with loud noises in crowds. Reed's voice held plain affection without decoration. She asked how his brother managed these challenges. Reed described quiet rooms and structured routines. He explained how they developed signals for when things became overwhelming. The story wasn't offered as inspiration or lesson. It was simply a fact about his family. Personal stories build empathy through specific details. Reed sharing about his brother's autism created a point of connection. It showed vulnerability without demanding anything in return. These small revelations act like psychological bridge points between different worlds. Niara began seeing her own condition differently. The genetic flaw that made her worthless to her father might simply be a different pattern of being. Humans accommodated neurological differences without declaring people broken. Their approach focused on adaptation rather than rejection. She watched engineers solving practical problems. They faced malfunctions without panic. They tested solutions methodically. Failure was data, not disgrace. This contrasted sharply with Lumerian perfectionism. Her father's court treated any flaw as catastrophic. The ship's medical staff conducted routine scans. They asked permission before each procedure. They explained what they were checking and why. This respect for bodily autonomy felt unfamiliar. Lumerian physicians operated on imperial authority without consultation. Niara felt something shift inside during a meal. A strange warmth spread through her abdomen. She dismissed it as unfamiliar food reactions. The sensation returned during a chess game with Reed. It felt like internal sunlight, gentle but persistent. Her body was changing in ways medical science declared impossible. The Lumerian doctors had been certain. Their scanners showed incompatible biology. Their genetic maps revealed broken pathways. Yet this warmth felt like life asserting itself against all evidence. She continued daily routines while monitoring the sensation. It grew stronger near Reed. She noticed it flared during moments of laughter or concentration. The feeling defied everything she'd been taught about her own inadequacy. The warmth became a constant presence over 3 days. It pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She touched her abdomen during a quiet moment. The skin felt normal, but the internal heat persisted. Medical knowledge said this couldn't happen. Her lived experience said otherwise. She stood before the mirror in her quarters. The reflection showed the same princess who left Lumaria. The internal reality felt completely different. Something new was growing where science declared barren ground. The impossible was becoming her new normal. They found Lyria Vox in a research outpost on a forgotten moon. The place had minimal life support and maximum isolation. Reed knew about her from diplomatic intelligence files. Brilliant minds fallen from favor often become information assets. Her exile was the imperial alternative to execution. Lyria greeted them without surprise. She'd been expecting someone to come asking questions eventually. Her living quarters doubled as a research lab. Data crystals lay scattered across work surfaces. She moved with the precise economy of someone who valued function over form. Her theories contradicted 15 millennia of doctrine. She believed humans and Lumerians shared common ancestry. The separation was a crisis response, not natural evolution. One branch developed psychic capabilities, the other, physical adaptability. The Empire suppressed this truth to maintain control. Exiled intellectuals often challenge regimes through preserved knowledge. Lyria maintained research the Empire tried to erase. She studied genetic markers the official science ignored. Her work suggested the severance was artificial manipulation. The ruling class engineered the division to consolidate power. The Genesis shard activation made sense through her research. The crystal contained cellular memory from before the divergence. It didn't create new life but unlocked dormant potential. Reed's exposure to the shard altered his biology at fundamental levels. His contact with Niara completed the catalytic sequence. The pregnancy wasn't an anomaly. It was reactivated genetics. The child represented a bridge between what was artificially separated. Lyria's research showed this reunion was always biologically possible. The Empire declared it impossible to maintain political control. Historical parallels exist across civilizations. Rulers frequently suppress scientific truth that threatens their authority. The Lumerian case was simply more extreme than most. They rewrote biology itself to serve doctrine. Lyria became dangerous because she remembered what they tried to erase. She showed them genetic maps comparing human and Lumerian DNA. The similarities outweighed the differences. The variations were strategic enhancements, not evolutionary divergences. The Emperor's purity doctrine was biological fiction maintained through force. The child's accelerated development matched ancient descriptions. Catalyzed fusion pregnancies progress at remarkable speeds. The embryo was rebuilding connections severed millennia ago. Its energy signatures indicated conscious realignment of genetic codes. Lyria confirmed their worst fears about imperial response. The Void Hunters were just the beginning. The Emperor would deploy entire fleets to eliminate this threat. The child challenged the foundation of his power. Its existence proved his doctrine was built on lies. They needed sanctuary immediately. Lyria knew a place beyond imperial tracking networks. A living structure grown into a forest moon. The location offered protection through organic technology. The environment could shield the pregnancy's energy signatures. The geneticist gathered essential research materials. She loaded data crystals into protective cases. Her movements were efficient and focused. She'd been preparing for this moment for years. The truth she protected was finally becoming active. They left the research outpost as Imperial scouts entered the system. The Void Hunters had tracked them through energy fluctuations. The child's development created ripples in the psychic network. Their escape needed to be immediate and precise. Lyria provided coordinates for the sanctuary moon. The journey would take them through unstable space. The route avoided standard patrol patterns. They departed just as scout ships began orbital scans. The pursuit intensified as their understanding deepened. The living structure rose from the forest floor like a natural fortress. Trees and vines interwove to form walls and archways without seams. This was bioarchitecture at its most advanced, technology serving nature rather than dominating it. The sanctuary operated on geothermal energy, leaving minimal signature for orbital scans. They entered through a doorway formed by two ancient trees leaning together. Lyria led them inside. The air felt cool and carried the scent of damp earth. Bioluminescent moss provided soft lighting along passageways. The place felt alive in ways their ship never could. Walls pulsed with slow rhythms like sleeping giants breathing. This was more than hiding. It was integration with the environment. Void hunter signals appeared on the perimeter sensors. 6 contacts moving in standard search formation. Their technology could penetrate most shielding, but struggled against organic interference. The forest itself became their first defense. Trees and vegetation scattered energy readings, creating false echoes across scanners. Natural environments often provide the best concealment. Dense forests mask heat signatures and disrupt scanning waves. The sanctuary's living structure amplified these effects through deliberate design. This wasn't chance protection but engineered obscurement. The hunters would need to come groundside to find them. Lyria activated the inner shielding. Crystalline formations glowed along the ceilings. The energy field harmonized with the forest's natural frequencies. This created a blank spot in sensory scans. The void hunters would see empty terrain where solid structure existed. Their superior technology met its match in organic ingenuity. Niara's condition required stabilization. The child's accelerated development created dangerous energy fluctuations. The pregnancy was progressing too fast for conventional medicine. They needed specific environmental conditions to prevent cellular breakdown. The sanctuary offered temporary safety but not the necessary biological support. Lyria studied the latest scans. Her face showed professional concern without panic. She explained the truth behind human-Lumerian relations. The severance wasn't natural evolution but deliberate manipulation. Rulers 15,000 years ago engineered the separation to consolidate power. They amplified differences and suppressed similarities. The geneticist revealed the deeper connection. Both species shared common ancestry before the artificial division. The child represented reunification rather than hybridization. Its biology was correcting ancient interference. The pregnancy was natural development resuming after forced interruption. This truth changed everything. The Emperor's purity doctrine was built on fabricated history. His entire justification for termination relied on false premises. The child wasn't contamination but correction. Niara wasn't flawed but fulfilled. The genetic incompatibility was engineered obstruction, not natural state. They weren't protecting an anomaly but safeguarding a restoration. The Void Hunters served lies rather than truth. Their mission enforced historical falsehoods. This understanding solidified their resolve. The sanctuary provided breathing space but not permanent safety. Lyria identified the only place capable of stabilizing the pregnancy. The Heartgrove functioned as a planetary energy nexus. Its unique properties could regulate the child's accelerated development. The environment there balanced extreme energies through natural harmony. They needed to reach it before the pregnancy progressed further. The journey would take them through underground passages. The root systems provided cover from aerial surveillance. Bioluminescent fungi offered minimal lighting in the tunnels. The path was narrow and required single-file movement. They prepared to move quickly but carefully. The Void Hunters began descending through the atmosphere. Their landing pattern suggested systematic search operations. Time became their most limited resource. The Heartgrove offered their only chance for successful stabilization. Lyria identified the Heartgrove as their only chance. The place held unique energy properties that could regulate the child's development. Without its stabilizing influence, the accelerated gestation would destroy them both. The pregnancy progressed at impossible speeds, rewriting biology faster than the body could adapt. They needed to reach the grove before cellular breakdown became irreversible. The grove functioned as a planetary energy nexus. Ancient trees formed a perfect circle around crystalline formations. These structures channeled geothermal and cosmic energies into balanced harmony. The environment created conditions where extreme biological processes could occur safely. This was nature's version of a precision laboratory, refined over millennia. Niara's body showed increasing strain from the pregnancy. Her vital signs fluctuated wildly between energy surges. The child developed conscious control over its own cellular structure. This unprecedented evolution generated power that threatened to overwhelm its host. Standard medical intervention would only accelerate the danger. Fictional narratives often feature places of power for healing and transformation. These locations provide sanctuary where normal rules don't apply. The Heart Grove served this function through natural mechanisms rather than magic. Its energy patterns could interface with living systems at fundamental levels. This made it the only environment capable of supporting the pregnancy. They moved through root tunnels beneath the forest. Bioluminescent fungi provided minimal lighting in the narrow passages. The air grew heavier with each step forward. Energy signatures intensified as they approached the grove. The child responded with increased activity, sensing the approaching stabilizing influence. Last stand scenarios require precise timing and perfect positioning. They needed to reach the grove's exact center for maximum effect. The crystal formations there provided the strongest energy modulation. Anything less than perfect placement would reduce the stabilization effect. The margin for error measured in centimeters, not meters. Lyria navigated using energy readings rather than visual markers. Her instruments showed the grove's core ahead. The tunnel opened into a circular clearing surrounded by ancient trees. Crystal formations jutted from the ground in geometric patterns. The air felt charged yet perfectly balanced between opposing forces. The child's chaotic energy pulses stabilized immediately upon entering. The violent fluctuations became a steady rhythmic pulse. The grove's environment began regulating the biological processes automatically. This was the only place where embryonic reconstruction could occur safely. The natural harmonics prevented cellular disintegration. They helped Niara to the central crystal formation. The stone glowed with soft golden light where she made contact. Energy flowed between her body and the grove in both directions. The child's development continued its accelerated pace, but now within sustainable parameters. The danger shifted from internal collapse to external threats. The Void Hunters would eventually track them here. The grove's energy signatures, while stabilizing, also created detectable patterns. Their sanctuary would become a battleground soon enough. For now, they had achieved the necessary stabilization. The immediate biological crisis was temporarily contained. The living tunnels behind them remained their only escape route. They would need to defend this position while the pregnancy progressed. The grove offered protection but not permanent safety. Their time here was limited by both biological and tactical considerations. The final confrontation would happen at this energy nexus. Perimeter sensors showed 6 hunters breaking through the outer defense grid. Their black vessels moved like shadows through the forest canopy. The Death Arbiter followed behind them, a semi-sentient construct of pure imperial will. Its form shifted between solid and energy, crowned with patterns mimicking the imperial regalia. The voice that emerged was Emperor Thaxon's own, distorted and amplified through technological replication. The directive was clear: eliminate the hybrid embryo and all human contamination. Their technology vastly outmatched available defenses. The hunters used stealth fields that rendered them nearly invisible to standard scanners. Their movements were automated and relentless, programmed for maximum efficiency without hesitation. Each hunter was biomechanically enhanced for combat in any environment. They represented the Emperor's perfect instruments of enforcement, sacrificing individual consciousness for absolute obedience. Reed assessed their position with military precision. He had 1 pulse rifle, 2 sidearms, and limited energy cartridges. Lyria's organic technology provided some concealment but minimal offensive capability. The Heartgrove's energy fields might disrupt targeting systems briefly. Their best advantage was terrain knowledge and the Grove's natural defenses. He positioned them behind the largest crystal formations where energy interference was strongest. Tactical defense against superior forces requires creating choke points and using environmental advantages. Reed directed Lyria to manipulate the Grove's energy channels. She adjusted crystalline resonators to create distortion fields. These wouldn't stop the hunters but might slow their advance. The organic technology responded slowly compared to military systems. They worked with what they had rather than what they wished for. The hunters entered the grove in standard search formation. Their sensors adjusted to the energy interference. The Death Arbiter remained at the perimeter, observing and directing. Its voice echoed through the trees, repeating the termination command. The words carried psychological weight beyond their meaning. This was designed to induce fear before engagement. Reed took the first shot when the lead hunter entered optimal range. The pulse rifle beam struck true but only staggered the target. The hunter's armor absorbed most of the energy. Return fire came immediately without hesitation. Energy bolts impacted the crystal barrier Reed used for cover. The stone glowed red where it absorbed the hits. Lyria activated the grove's defensive systems fully. Bioluminescent patterns flared across the clearing. The energy distortion increased significantly. Hunter targeting systems briefly malfunctioned. Their shots went wide for precious seconds. This provided a small window for repositioning. Reed moved to higher ground behind a stone outcrop. The Death Arbiter entered the grove as the hunters recalibrated. Its presence amplified their coordination. The 6 hunters moved in perfect synchronization now. Their advance became methodical and unstoppable. Reed's ammunition was half depleted. The energy barriers wouldn't hold much longer. They were being forced into the grove's center with no retreat possible. The final stand position offered minimal cover, but maximum energy exposure. The central crystals provided the strongest protective field. Niara remained there for the pregnancy's stabilization. Reed and Lyria took positions on either side. The hunters advanced from 3 directions simultaneously. Their weapons charged for a coordinated final assault. The Death Arbiter raised its energy blade. The hunters leveled their weapons. The grove's defensive fields flickered under the combined pressure. They were seconds from being overrun. The confrontation reached its inevitable climax. No more options remained except resistance. Niara felt the child react to the imminent danger. A new energy gathered within her, different from the grove's stabilizing influence. This felt like conscious preparation rather than biological process. The embryo was aware of the threat and responding accordingly. The Death Arbiter raised its energy blade. The 6 Void Hunters charged their weapons in unison. Their targeting systems locked onto Niara's position at the grove's center. Reed fired his last energy cartridge. The shot glanced off a hunter's shoulder armor. Lyria manipulated the crystal resonators, creating a brief distortion field. The hunter's aim wavered for 2 seconds. Then a new presence made itself known. Energy pulsed from Niara's abdomen in a visible wave. The golden light washed across the clearing. It carried no heat but immense pressure. The Void Hunters stumbled backward as if struck by physical force. Their weapons discharged harmlessly into the ground. The Death Arbiter's blade flickered and dimmed. This was not the grove's energy. This came from within the developing child. The embryo demonstrated consciousness through precise defensive action. Its energy wave targeted only the threat sources. The friendly positions remained unaffected. The pulse disrupted technology without harming organic life. Trees and plants continued unharmed while hunter systems faltered. This showed calculation beyond instinctive reaction. The child understood friend from foe without prior experience. Science fiction often explores fetal consciousness concepts. Stories describe unborn children with advanced awareness or abilities. These narratives challenge our understanding of development stages. The child in Niara's womb displayed sentience matching these fictional accounts. Its actions demonstrated problem-solving and deliberate intervention. The energy signature differed from previous fluctuations. Earlier pulses were biological byproducts of rapid development. This emission carried clear intentionality. It responded to specific external threats with tailored countermeasures. The wave neutralized weapons without causing collateral damage. This indicated sophisticated control over energy manifestation. Psychic phenomena sometimes serve as defense mechanisms in extreme situations. The child accessed abilities from both genetic lineages. It tapped into human resilience and Lumerian psychic potential. This combination created a unique protective capability. The energy acted as both shield and disruptive force against technology. The hunters recovered quickly from the initial pulse. Their systems rebooted with backup power sources. The Death Arbiter's blade reignited with intensified fury. They advanced again with modified tactics. 2 hunters targeted Reed and Lyria directly. 4 concentrated on Niara with maximum firepower. The child responded with coordinated precision. A second energy wave emerged, more focused than the first. It struck the hunters' weapon system specifically. Their rifles sparked and went dead instantly. The energy then formed a protective dome around Niara. The shimmering field deflected physical and energy attacks alike. The child adapted its defense to the evolving threat. The Death Arbiter switched to melee combat. It lunged toward the energy dome with blade raised. The child's consciousness met the assault directly. A third pulse emanated, this time carrying audible frequency. The sound resonated through the grove like a deep chime. The Arbiter's form destabilized momentarily. Its semi-solid structure wavered between states. The resolution became undeniable. This was no passive pregnancy. The child actively participated in its own survival. It assessed threats, developed counters, and executed defenses. Its sentience grew more defined with each confrontation. The being inside Niara was already a combatant in this conflict. The energy dome intensified as the hunters closed distance. The child prepared for direct physical confrontation. Its awareness expanded beyond defensive measures. It began projecting sensations to its mother, images of strategy, feelings of reassurance. The partnership between mother and child became a tactical alliance. The grove's energy suddenly converged. It flowed into Niara's chest, forming a brilliant, concentrated point of light. The Death Arbiter lunged, blade aimed at her heart. All defensive measures had failed. Reed was out of ammunition. Lyria's resonators were overloaded. The child's energy dome flickered under the assault. The moment seemed lost. A symbol bloomed on Niara's skin where the light gathered. 2 interlocking spirals glowed with intense clarity. They represented fused DNA, the union of human and Lumerian genetics. This was no accidental marking. It was a declaration written in light, a symbolic representation of genetic heritage made manifest. The pattern pulsed with ancient significance, a visual language older than empires. The child channeled energy through this symbol. It drew not just from the grove, but from ancestral memory. This was power, from before the Great Severance, from when both species were one. The energy formed a shield more solid than any technology could create. It was made of memory and possibility, of lost connections reforged. The Death Arbiter's blade shattered against it. Climactic moments in hero journeys often feature revelations that redefine reality. This was such a moment. The shield didn't just block, it transformed. The energy reached into the hunters and the Arbiter itself. It sought not to destroy, but to reconnect. The mechanical parts of the hunters faltered. The biological components remembered something older than programming. A voice spoke without sound. It resonated in the mind, clear and certain. It was the child's consciousness, fully formed and aware. The words carried the weight of millennia. We are the reconciliation. We are what was divided made whole again. The declaration wasn't a threat, but a simple statement of fact. The child defined its own existence against imperial lies. The voice continued echoing through the grove. It spoke of ancient unity and artificial separation. It described the fear that created divisions between species. The words carried the authority of genetic memory, of truth written into cells. The hunters stopped their advance. Their systems processed this new data against their programming. The Death Arbiter recalculated its directives. The Imperial commands conflicted with this deeper truth. Its semi-sentient core struggled with contradictory imperatives. The voice of the Emperor fought against the voice of ancestry. The construct hesitated for the first time. Its blade lowered slightly as systems re-evaluated. Reed saw the opening created by this hesitation. The Arbiter's confusion provided a tactical opportunity. He assessed the remaining options quickly. Their position was still precarious. The hunters might reboot at any moment. The child's energy couldn't hold forever. Action was required before the moment passed. The voice's echo began to fade. The mental resonance diminished as the child conserved energy. The brilliant light on Niara's chest dimmed slightly. The symbolic spirals remained visible, but less intense. The grove's energy flow returned to normal patterns. The temporary advantage was ending. The Death Arbiter's systems finished recalculation. Imperial programming reasserted itself. The blade lifted again with renewed purpose. The hunters reactivated their weapons. The moment of revelation passed into renewed confrontation. The chance for peaceful resolution disappeared. Reed moved without hesitation. He positioned himself between Niara and the advancing threat. His body became the final barrier. The Arbiter's blade glowed with maximum intensity. The hunters took aim at the weakened energy shield. The confrontation entered its final phase. The Death Arbiter's blade glowed with final intent. Its energy focused on Niara's womb, the target designated for termination. The Void Hunters maintained covering fire. Reed saw the trajectory calculation in milliseconds. He moved without conscious thought. His body became a shield between the weapon and its intended target. The Arbiter's energy blast struck him full in the chest. The impact was absolute. Void energy tore through his diplomatic attire and into his body. The force lifted him off his feet. He felt his ribs crack under the assault. The energy sought to unravel his cellular structure. His nervous system registered the damage as pure white agony. He collapsed against Niara, his body absorbing the blast meant for her and the child. Sacrifice tropes in science fiction often involve taking a fatal blow for others. These moments transform characters from participants into legends. Reed's action followed this pattern, but without grandiosity. It was a practical decision made under fire. His body became the barrier that Imperial technology could not immediately penetrate. The cost was measured in broken bones and seared tissue. His near-death experience began as he hit the ground. Consciousness flickered like a failing light. He saw Niara's face above his, her expression shifting from shock to determination. The pain became a distant thing separate from his awareness. His training kicked in, assessing damage with clinical detachment. Massive thoracic trauma, possible spinal injury, certain internal bleeding. The narrative function of such moments is to bind fates irrevocably. Reed's sacrifice created a debt that could never be repaid. It also demonstrated the depth of his commitment. He protected not just a political alliance, but a future he helped create. His action defied the Emperor's calculation that humans were expendable. Niara's reaction was instantaneous. Her hand pressed against his wound. Her other hand covered her abdomen. The child within her responded to the crisis. Energy flowed from her touch into his body. It stabilized the worst of the damage temporarily. This exchange created a feedback loop between them. Three beings connected through shared crisis. Lyria moved to provide medical assistance. Her hands were steady as she applied pressure to the wound. She recognized the significance of the moment. This was the binding point between species, sealed through sacrifice and protection. The mythic quality of the event was undeniable, yet it remained grounded in physical reality. Reed's breathing was shallow but steady. He managed to speak through the pain. His words were simple and direct. He asked if they were safe. The question revealed his priorities remained unchanged despite his injuries. His concern was for their protection, not his own survival. The hunter's systems began to malfunction. The Arbiter's attack had created an energy feedback through Reed's body. Their targeting systems could not process the biological interference. They staggered as their programming conflicted with unexpected variables. The perfect killing machines faced an imperfect situation. The sacrifice achieved its immediate purpose. The termination order remained unexecuted. The child was unharmed. Niara was protected. But the cost was evident in Reed's still form on the grove floor. His blood soaked into the sacred ground. The bond between them was now physical as well as emotional. His survival remained uncertain. The void energy continued working in his system. It resisted the child's stabilizing influence. The conflict between technologies played out in his body. Imperial science fought against hybrid biology inside a human frame. The outcome would determine more than one man's life. The child's energy washed through the grove like a wave of pure light. It didn't destroy the Void Hunters, it reprogrammed them. Their neural implants processed the energy signature against Imperial directives. The contradiction caused systemic failure. Their programming couldn't reconcile Emperor's orders with biological truth. The hunters staggered, weapons dropping from numb hands. Their shadow-based technology flickered and died under the golden light. Automated systems fail when faced with paradoxical commands. The hunters' intelligence could process combat variables but not existential crises. Their emotionless programming became their weakness. Without emotional flexibility, they had no capacity to adapt to new realities. They simply shut down, collapsing where they stood like abandoned machinery. The Death Arbiter experienced more complex failure. Its semi-sentient core recognized the energy signature as legitimate. The child's power carried authority older than Imperial doctrine. The Arbiter's connection to Emperor Thaxon severed abruptly. Its form wavered between solid and energy states. The construct that spoke with the Emperor's voice fell silent. On the Imperial flagship, the Hearthstone began its transformation. The central crystal that anchored the command throne glowed with steady blue light for 15,000 years. Now it shifted color gradually. The blue light deepened, warmed, then turned unmistakably gold. The change started at the core and spread outward through the crystalline structure. Symbols of legitimacy often transform when power shifts. Crowns tarnish, flags change color, thrones crack. The Hearthstone's transformation signaled deeper change. It wasn't just decoration, it was the heart of Imperial authority. Its golden glow now matched the child's energy signature exactly. The Emperor's own infrastructure was rejecting his doctrine. Thaxon watched the color change with growing unease. His certainty fractured as his tools failed him. The Void Hunters stopped reporting. The Death Arbiter went silent. Now his command throne itself was transforming. The man who believed in absolute control faced absolute loss of it. His war machine was turning against him not through rebellion, but through redefinition. The golden light spread through the ship's systems. Display screens flickered with the new color. Control panels glowed with warm light where cold blue once dominated. The change wasn't destructive but transformative. Systems continued functioning but under new parameters. The technology remembered something older than Imperial programming. Back in the grove, the hunters lay motionless but intact. Their neural implants had rebooted to factory settings. They showed no hostility, only confusion. The Death Arbiter dissolved into harmless energy patterns. The immediate threat was neutralized without violence. The child's power had achieved what weapons could not. This rejection created political vacuum. The Emperor's authority relied on obedience from his tools. With hunters disabled and Arbiter gone, his reach became limited. The Golden Hearthstone meant his symbolic power was transferring elsewhere. Commanders across the fleet would notice the change. They would question orders that contradicted this new reality. The resolution became clear through systematic failure. Thaxon's certainty couldn't withstand his own infrastructure rejecting him. His doctrine relied on perfect control. The imperfections of truth undermined that control completely. The political reckoning would begin with military leaders demanding explanations. The Emperor, who declared absolute authority, now faced absolute doubt. The transition to coalition building began with this failure of machinery. The Hunters' collapse created opportunity for dialogue. The Hearthstone's transformation provided visual evidence of change. Commanders who followed orders without question now had reason to hesitate. The path forward required reassessment of everything they believed. Imperial command channels filled with urgent inquiries. Fleet admirals demanded clarification about the Hearthstone's transformation. The signal reached the Emperor's throne room as a constant stream of encrypted messages. Senior officers questioned the termination orders. They cited the golden glow spreading through their own ship systems. The Old Guard maintained control through sheer force of tradition, but their foundation was cracking. Political fractures appear in authoritarian systems when core beliefs face contradiction. The Emperor's doctrine of purity relied on absolute certainty. The changing Hearthstone introduced doubt into rigid minds. Commanders who followed orders without question began hesitating. They delayed deployment schedules. They requested additional verification procedures. The war machine slowed as its operators reconsidered their purpose. Hybrid vessels appeared at the sanctuary moon's perimeter. They were small ships, poorly armed, but numerous. Their crews represented both species, living proof that separation was never absolute. These were the children of secret relationships, exiles from both societies. They answered a call that resonated in their very blood. Their arrival demonstrated the practical possibility of reunification. Lived legacies of suppressed peoples often surface during moments of crisis. These hybrids carried the truth in their DNA. They knew isolation and persecution from both sides. Their existence contradicted imperial doctrine simply by breathing. They positioned their ships between the Emperor's fleet and the sanctuary moon. Their formation was defensive but resolute. The child's energy reached out to these newcomers. It created a psychic network that transcended artificial divisions. This connection felt different from the imperial network. It was voluntary rather than imposed. It celebrated difference rather than demanding conformity. Hybrid minds that had always felt fragmented now experienced wholeness. Scientists and historians joined the gathering coalition. They brought evidence from pre-severance archives. Their research showed the artificial nature of the species division. They shared data that had been suppressed for millennia. Knowledge became their weapon against doctrine. Truth mobilized faster than battleships. The child served as a living symbol for this gathering movement. Its very existence proved reunification was biologically possible. Its energy signature became a rallying point for those seeking change. The golden light represented hope rather than heresy. It showed a future where differences strengthened rather than divided. The Emperor's forces faced a dilemma. Their weapons were aimed at their own people now. The hybrids were Lumerian citizens by birth. The scientists held respected positions. The historians preserved imperial culture. Firing on them would mean destroying parts of their own society. The military hesitated at this threshold. The coalition solidified through shared purpose. They protected the child not as a political statement, but as a biological reality. Their numbers grew as more ships answered the psychic call. The sanctuary moon became surrounded by a fleet of the marginalized and enlightened. Their diversity became their strength. These survivors demonstrated that two worlds could become one. Their very bodies contained both lineages working in harmony. They were living proof that the Emperor's fears were unfounded. Their presence changed the conflict from extermination to reconciliation. The battle shifted from military to ideological. The child's energy stabilized as the coalition grew. Its development accelerated within this protective circle. The golden light pulsed in rhythm with the surrounding ships. A new network was forming, one based on choice rather than birthright. This organic connection felt more powerful than any imposed system. Lyria monitored the changing energy patterns. She recognized the significance of this gathering. The coalition represented the practical application of ancient plans. Their peaceful assembly demonstrated the viability of reunification. The child was the catalyst, but these people were the reaction. The Emperor watched from his command throne. His golden hearthstone pulsed in time with the distant energy signatures. His own systems were synchronizing with the very thing he sought to destroy. The circle was closing whether he willed it or not. Ancient designs were reasserting themselves through living proof. Lyria accessed the pre-severance archives through secured channels. The data revealed a design older than empires. Ancient geneticists planned for reunification from the beginning. The severance was never meant to be permanent. It was a waiting period while both evolutionary branches stabilized. The original records contained precise calculations for the reunion phase. The geneticist studied the ancestral equations. Her fingers traced the mathematical models on the display. The numbers pointed toward a specific convergence window. She compared the calculations with current astrological alignments. The data matched perfectly. The time for reunion was now. This wasn't speculation, but mathematical certainty. Long-term historical plans appear throughout fiction. Stories describe civilizations acting across millennia. The Lumerian case was science rather than prophecy. The archives contained biological triggers and temporal markers. The child's conception aligned with predicted celestial configurations. Its birth would complete a cycle 15,000 years in the making. Lyria explained the calculations to Nyara and Reed. She showed them the genetic markers that signaled readiness. Both species had reached the necessary evolutionary points. The child wasn't an accident, but an activation. Its unique biology fulfilled ancient parameters. The pregnancy was biological destiny responding to mathematical certainty. Narratives where the past dictates the future often involve rediscovered knowledge. This was knowledge preserved against deliberate destruction. The original geneticists anticipated their work might be suppressed. They encoded the reunion plan in multiple formats. Some records survived in hidden repositories. Others passed through oral traditions among exiles. The resolution transformed their understanding completely. The child's existence wasn't a rupture in the natural order. It was the natural order reasserting itself after artificial interruption. The emperor's purity doctrine was the actual anomaly. His fear-based policies opposed the original design. The pregnancy represented cosmic correction. Lyria declared the time for reunion had arrived. Her voice held scientific certainty rather than emotional fervor. She cited chromosome markers and energy resonance frequencies. The evidence was overwhelming and multi-layered. Biological, astronomical, and historical data all converged. The child was the key that turned in a lock long prepared. This understanding changed their strategic position. They weren't defending an anomaly, but protecting a planned event. The coalition ships represented the will of the ancestors. The Emperor's forces were opposing biological destiny. This shifted the moral and tactical landscape completely. The child's energy pulses began synchronizing with the archive's predictions. The frequency matched ancient descriptions of the awakening phase. The golden light intensified according to mathematical models. Even the Hearthstone's transformation followed predicted patterns. Everything was proceeding as the original planners intended. The geneticist monitored the progression with professional satisfaction. She compared real-time data with archival projections. The match was nearly perfect. Minor variations fell within acceptable parameters. The child was developing exactly as the ancient science anticipated. The reunion was happening on schedule despite all opposition. The final cosmic shift began as the child reached full term. Energy patterns across the system aligned with ancient descriptions. The pre-severance network started reactivating through the new connection. The past was reclaiming the present through living biology. The circle was closing exactly as designed. The cosmos realigned after 15,000 years of separation. Stars shifted in patterns unseen for millennia, as if space itself accommodated what was about to be born. The reconciliation created a shared psychic network linking both species naturally. It was a voluntary connection, a meeting of minds instead of a forced integration. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges and potential conflicts. But the purpose was clear for those involved. Shepherd this new era into existence despite the risks. Post-conflict reconciliation in narratives often focuses on healing old wounds. Here, the healing was literal and biological. The child's energy mended broken connections at the cellular level. Power structures were redefined not through conquest but through consensus. The coalition of hybrids, scientists, and historians formed a provisional council. They operated on principles of inclusion rather than exclusion. Their authority came from representing the reunited whole. Emperor Thaxon's war machine stalled under the weight of doubt and alliance. His fleet commanders refused to fire on their own people. The golden Hearthstone pulsed in every ship, a constant reminder of changed realities. The downfall of inflexible rulers follows a predictable pattern. They cannot adapt when their absolute truths are proven false. Thaxon remained on his throne, but his commands echoed in empty space. His influence shrank to a single ship as the coalition grew. The mother of galactic reunification prepared for the final transition. Niara felt the child's consciousness merging with the new network. It was not a takeover but an invitation. Beings from both species felt the connection as a homecoming. The energy was warm and inclusive, unlike the cold precision of the Imperial network. This was biology remembering its original design. The circle closed without fanfare. One moment there was separation, the next there was connection. The reconciliation of worlds commenced as the child's energy reached critical mass. It was a quiet event despite its cosmic significance. The ancient consciousness that had waited millennia simply whispered, "It begins." The words resonated through the new network, felt rather than heard. The sanctuary moon became the meeting ground for two civilizations. Ships from both species landed without weapons drawn. Humans and Lumerians faced each other without the baggage of doctrine. They saw their own features reflected in slightly different forms. The recognition was instinctual and profound. The child's energy facilitated understanding where words failed. Reed recovered slowly in the heart grove. His wounds were severe but healed cleanly under the combined care of human and Lumerian medicine. His sacrifice became the foundation myth of the new alliance. He accepted this role with quiet reluctance, focusing on practical matters. His first request was for communication protocols between species. Lyria documented the transition with scientific precision. Her records would become the official history of the reunification. She noted how quickly both species adapted to the psychic network. The connection felt natural because it was natural. The artificial separation was the true abnormality. The child's birth would complete the process begun millennia ago. The coalition established temporary governance based on mutual respect. They addressed immediate needs, resource sharing, communication standards, conflict resolution. The work was tedious but necessary. The grand cosmic shift required practical administration. The future would be built through careful negotiation, not dramatic declarations. Stars continued their slow realignment overhead. The universe adjusted to the new reality without comment. On the sanctuary moon, two species began the careful work of becoming one. The circle was closed. The long winter of separation had ended. What came next would require patience, courage, and forgiveness. But the impossible had already been achieved. The divided were whole again. The galaxy has shifted course. Boundaries that held for millennia now show fractures of light. A child conceived in impossibility has become living bridge between stars. What was declared flawed proved essential. The healing of ancient division began with a single life where science said none could exist. The journey from broken to complete was walked through sacrifice and stubborn hope. The future is not guaranteed, but the possibility is now written in shared DNA. That depends on us.